Hello and welcome to The Hour. I'm your host, Jim Pellegrino. Our guests today are from the worlds of public relations communications, entrepreneur humanitarian, and student career education. Those guests specifically are Ann Baldwin, President, Baldwin Media Marketing, Drew Harris, Professor, Management and Organization, CCSU, and his two students, Nick Karamatang and Nick Alaimo. Curtis Robinson, entrepreneur and humanitarian, are our other guests. So sit back, relax, don't move, and enjoy The Hour. Hello, this is Jim Pellegrino, your host for The Hour, and our guest today is Ann Baldwin, a favorite of my viewers on the show. This has got to be your third or fourth appearance.
It
and
is.
You were the first guest on my newest show, which is this one, which is almost 3 years ago. You're looking fabulous.
Thank you. I feel good.
You feel good?
I feel good.
Excellent. Ann, for the viewing audience's pleasure, is the president of Baldwin Media Marketing. Prior to that, every time she's on the show, although it was quite some time ago,
Yeah,
about
long
15
time ago.
years ago now,
Closer to
she
20.
was the most popular TV news anchor on NBC Channel 30,
According to.
according to the viewing audience, of course.
Thank you, Jim.
And she's also done radio, she's done TIC, she's done articles, and she's working all over the country now. So let's start out by getting our viewing audience acquainted with Baldwin Media Marketing and the major lines of business that you have.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be on the show because, you know, we'll talk about public relations in a second, but this is one of the few programs out there where you actually have a forum to talk more than, 10-second sound bites,
Exactly.
2 or 3 of those. So you can actually get into an in-depth conversation. You don't have to worry about being edited or taken out of context. So this is so refreshing to
And
me.
you like that.
I love that.
Okay.
And more importantly, my clients love that, but there's not enough of it out there. So
Okay.
thank you for this.
Right ahead.
Thank you for this
Appreciate the
forum
comments.
here at Central. So Baldwin Media Marketing really evolved from, as you mentioned, I worked at the NBC affiliate. That was my major in college, speech and communications. And I said, maybe I'll be a TV newscaster someday, so that was my goal.
Colorado State University,
Yay!
Fort Collins, Colorado.
That's right. You've got a great memory, Jim.
Absolutely.
So I decided to pursue that as a career, and I worked at stations all over the place, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Sterling, Colorado, Springfield, Massachusetts, and then I ended up in a pretty good-sized market in Hartford, and I was there for a lot of years. I was a weekend anchor reporter. But what happened is I hit the glass ceiling. I've been there a long time. I'm making, pretty good money, and there's younger, blonder chicks, frankly, willing to work for a fraction of the pay, and I saw that coming, so I said, okay, what's my plan B?
Let me stop you right there, Ann. Excuse me for interrupting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that glass ceiling for female anchors still there? Is it gotten better, or?
Well, that's a whole nother half-hour show in
Okay,
itself.
well, give it to me in 15, 20 seconds.
I don't know. For me it was, and yes, I think the whole industry in perspective is that, it's not what it used to be. You got a few people that make a really good salary and have been there a long time, but then you've got the other people that are really replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a revolving door. So I kind of got into that revolving door, and it's all based on management, and that was fine. So when I got to that point, I said, what is my plan going to be? What can I do with being a newscaster, reporter? What can I do with these skills and my college education? How can I apply that to something that I don't have to worry about month-to-month contracts? I don't have to worry about if I've gained a couple pounds or if my kids are homesick. I don't have to worry about those things. So the bottom line was I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny, and I started Baldwin Media. 3 months before my contract ended, I had a plan. I had 2 clients under my belt, and when I walked out that door with my severance package, I said, this is what I'm going to do, and I've never looked back.
And that was about 16 years ago now, Ann,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
Okay.
it's been a long time. It's
Okay.
been a long time. And even now, my old news director and I are friends on Facebook, and I thank him. I thank him for what he did to me, because what it did was it made me look at the reality there is life after television.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of it is when you go from working, in the news business, I've now taken that skill set and helped my clients who might be converged upon the media, because of a bad situation, a crisis situation, or even help people pitch good news. How do you get your story out there? How do you get it out into the press? How do you get it online? How do you get that kind of exposure that maybe you necessarily don't have to buy paid advertising
Now,
for?
would we call this the public relations end of your business?
That's the public relations piece of it.
Okay.
Right. So
What other pieces are there?
Well, that's one of the components. That's what a lot of people would like to have. We want to get the good news out. We want to let people know that we're donating this amount of money to this charity. We want to, but what's the story beyond that? And that's where my background as a journalist and reporter really comes into play. And then, of course, the crisis communication stuff speaks for itself. So the media is converging on you. You don't have a plan in place. You're the CEO. One bad soundbite, one bad quote, you're done.
Well, we're going to spend some time talking about that, because one thing is for sure, Ann, there's no end of crises that goes on in any particular area. But if we were to getting back to your business, because I want to make sure we get all that out, the type of clients you have, large company, small company, public sector, private sector, tell us a little bit about your client profile.
Well, and it's evolving. It's kind of, the reason I love what I do is because every day is different. This morning I was with a client at one of the network TV stations taping a segment today. So she was on the segment. So I see her through that process. So she's just authored a cookbook. Her goal is to be a foodie, to be on the Food Network. And I'm going to hopefully help her accomplish that goal. I've got financial advisors that one guy has his own radio show. We do articles, we do columns in the newspaper. Simsbury Bank, one of my clients. Media training the CEO to come up with sound bites. What's going on in the financial world? How do you get your message out to consumers? To restaurants, I opened the Tiffany at West Farms years ago. That was a fun one. So every day is different. A lot of my clients are constant. Connecticut Humane Society, I'm very proud to say, is one of my clients. So they have pet adoption segments on NBC and Fox every week. And in a lot of the internet video stuff that we do and apply it to their website and to their Facebook pages. So it's great.
How about the public sector? You do any work in the public sector?
I've done a lot of work.
Government people?
I've done a lot of things that I can't talk about. That's the thing with crisis.
It's a secret? We'd have to kill you if you talked about it?
I'd have to kill you.
Okay.
So, I can give you some categories, from laptop thefts to maybe accidental spills on a job site to union demonstrations against a particular company. So, the media tends to, and I tell people sometimes that I feel like I jumped off of a sinking ship, because they blow things out of proportion. They need to do that for their ratings. I was told to do that when I was out there reporting stories. So how do you help businesses, people, nonprofits? How do you help them manage that message?
So I guess I could best characterize your client base, you'll love this word, Ann, is eclectic, right?
Absolutely.
You get everything from Humane Society on this end all the way to politicians on the other end.
Politicians, ING, National Shooting Sports Foundation.
And everything in the middle.
And everything in between.
And everything in the middle. Do you have, if I were to force you to characterize in priority order your top three most toughest kind of sectors, what's the toughest one to deal with, Ann?
Probably one of the sectors that keeps me the busiest is education. Education. I work for the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. They're one of my clients. They represent school superintendents, most importantly, boards of education across the state. So I'm the go-to person when something bad happens, let's say at a school. If you remember the situation where the kid was told he couldn't go to prom because he invited his date and he put up a big banner on the front of the high school.
Oh, yeah.
We made national news with
Right.
that. So managing them through that, having everybody from Dateline to Inside Edition on school property the night of the prom and everything leading up to that. So that was one. I had another school principal who got a DUI, and he was the guy that did the breathalyzers at the school dances. So what is the advice? What is the advice for that? The guy fell on his sword. It's it. You can't make this stuff up.
I know. I'm sure.
So a lot of things happen, and the mentality of people thinking it's going to go away, the problem's going to disappear, the media won't care tomorrow. Forget about it. So if you don't speak, somebody else will. So it's at least my recommendation as a public relations professional to get your side of the story out there.
Okay, so primarily Baldwin Media Marketing, you're talking primarily public relations, primarily crisis communication, and you handle those areas all from being like the on-the-spot person to help them through the crisis all the way to doing training.
Yes.
And I've seen you train, and it's really something when you're standing there with that microphone in your hand and you're simulating the press. and how people sometimes are just like frozen in the headlights when it happens to them. And it happens so much nowadays, Ann. It happens so much.
It does. So yeah, the media training component is something that I insist upon. If you're going to be a client of mine, you're going to go through my media training program, because you have to understand how the game is played. You can't fall victim to the media's questions. What is your key message? What is the message that you want to get out to your public? Is this a social media message? Are we tweeting it? Are we Facebooking it? I mean, everything has changed, Jim, and that's why people like Veronica here that I hire that are much younger than me, that can keep up with the trend.
Veronica's she's a good-looking person. Where is she? Veronica, where? There she is. She's waving. I like it, Ann.
Veronica's great. So just figuring out, again, what is the key message? How do you manage that message? And that's where my relationships with media people come into play, because they respect me, I believe, because I've been there, done that.
Right.
So, and I'm there on behalf of my client, but I'm also there to help the media out. I understand they've got information they need, they've got a job they have to do. So how can I prepare my client to best give them what they need?
Let's talk about that just for a second. You know, what I try to do is I try to map out over the last 30 to 40 to 50 years where we've come from. And when I put the map together a long time ago, and it used to be the primary news sources were radio, newspapers, and they even showed the news in the movies, albeit 3 weeks late after it happened. It was there. The next stage was radio and TV and the newspapers. The next stage was radio, TV, newspapers, although the radio now is divided into regular and satellite. TV, you have mainstream cable 24 hours 7, and video streaming, newspapers, regional, and websites. But now what we have is we have social media,
yes, we
right?
do.
And we have YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. We've got blogs, and it can either make you or break you. And you can't listen to news nowadays without people really trying to leverage social media. So I'm a client of yours, right? And I'm in trouble for whatever reason. Actually, it could be a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. Do a Google search.
So it could be any reason, right? And and I'm saying, Ann, how do I handle what's going to happen to me on social media? What do you tell me to do?
One of the things that we do on behalf of a lot of our clients is we help them with their social media. We'll set up their Facebook page. We'll tweet on their behalf. We'll monitor tweets so that they don't have to become consumed by this, so somebody else is looking out for their best interest. So that's one thing.
Excuse me for interrupting. Did you see who's the latest tweeter? The Pope.
Oh, I did see that.
Did you see that?
I
You
did
know what
see that.
struck me about that?
Do you really think he's sending his own tweets?
No. And what
how
struck
many
me about
languages?
that was I can see the 4 or 5 people surrounding the Pope doing his
Oh, yeah.
tweeting. I mean, that just struck me.
Right.
Anyway.
You know, speaking of the
going
Pope,
too far.
I was watching his press person who was holding a press conference about the fact that the Pope's going to be tweeting.
Yeah.
He should have just tweeted the fact he's going to be tweeting, and it would have been over with. But he was doing his press conference, and he had in front of a laptop. Or in front of a iPad. And you could tell he had his little talking points on his iPad, and he just kept reading from his talking points, and then every now and then looking up at the camera, and I'm like, stop it. I'm the worst person to watch somebody on television or listen to radio with, because it makes me cringe that people aren't better prepared to handle it. It's such an impact on the message.
If I'm in trouble as someone who runs a company or as an individual or in any of the other areas that you described before, and I say to you, Ann, how am I going to keep up with, should I keep up with, what do I do with social media when it comes after me?
There is no cookie cutter approach, and there's no one answer to that. And that's the other thing. I like to look at it industry specific and individual specific. Some people are better equipped, some companies are better equipped to handle it, some companies are better suited for that. Some aren't. So there is no, cut and dry. There's no boilerplate. And for people that say there is a boilerplate, it's like the old days of the website. There's no boilerplate for a good website. Your website has to fit your personality, has to help you reach your target audience, or why in the heck do you even have a website? Of which ours is baldwinmedia.com.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, I just had to throw that in there.
You can do it again. You want to do it again?
We'll do it again.
Okay.
Yeah. I want a full screen graphic. Okay, can you make sure that's up at the end
we'll
of
do
the
that.
show, guys? But
Chad, make a note of that, okay? Would you make a note of that? Okay, go ahead.
But you talk about the impact of social media on news. I'm going to give you a good example of what happened a couple of weeks ago with one of my clients. News media is all over the place. A kid on the bus driver had turned the heater on for the first time because it's starting to get cold in the mornings, right? We're in wintertime. Kid tweets, they all smell something. Mom, I think the bus is on fire. She flips out. She calls the neighbor. I think Joey's bus is on fire. Oh my God, Mary's on that bus. Sue's on the bus. this whole
Gone viral.
gone viral in a matter of seconds, probably even before the police or the bus company was notified. Long story short, it was just the smell, but the bus driver did do the right thing, pulled the bus over. Parents are showing up, panic, saying, "I want my kid off that bus." You can't let a kid off of a bus. Once they're on the bus, they are the custody of the school district, and you don't know that I'm really your parent or who I am, so you can't do that. So my point is, you know, it was important for us to reach out to the media proactively saying, and they were reporting the tweets, breaking news, school bus fire, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you can't do that, folks. You know, so I have to proactively call, help them keep it in perspective, and help them kind of slow things down. Because the longer people go on without knowing and questioning and guessing, and there are no checks and balances when it comes to tweets, when it comes to Facebook. I mean, the good old days of doing your homework and checking your facts, forget about it.
Yeah. It's sort of like the Wild Wild West.
It is.
And there's no checkpoint on it. Anybody can say anything that they want to. You must have, I mean, Ann, anybody who's ever been involved in public life, I have been, you have been, et cetera, you have a tendency to read something or see something on TV and think that everybody in the world has seen it. So you feel this natural intuition that says, I have to comment to defend my fill in the blank, right?
Right.
When it comes to social media, can you do that? I mean, you can't keep up with half of this stuff, can you?
Again, it depends on what you're talking about. For example, when I worked with the Dr. Pettit on that situation, you know, some of the comments that people were writing after the articles, you know, and there is no filter. You know, it's that freedom of speech thing. So people are putting up things that were just unbelievable, just awful. So what do? Then you try to get your troops to comment, to put their own fresh face on this and put the right perspective up, so some of those go down to the bottom. Now, there was one situation where I called an editor of the newspaper, the Republican American in Waterbury. I said, come on. He goes, what's freedom of speech? I can't do anything. I said, have you read these? So he did me a favor. He removed some of those comments. Doesn't happen very often. But the biggest problem people make is they're not prepared for a bad situation. It'll never happen to me. It's not going to be a reflection on me. It's not going to be my company. You know, and they wait until all hell breaks loose to start figuring out what they're going to do with that. So if you don't have a plan in place, shame on you. And I get so many calls from people, I need help and I need it now. Well, you should have called me 2 weeks ago when you thought this might become a problem. If you think it might, prepare for it. If you never have to use it, good.
We got about 10 minutes left.
That's it.
That's it.
I want more time.
I understand. Make a note of that too, Chad, would you please? Politically correct. I'm a client of yours, and you're trying to coach me on virtually anything I say nowadays that offends anybody anywhere. Do you literally coach people on that?
No.
I mean, where do you even begin, Ann? It's so crazy.
Frankly, that's not my style, and it's really not the style of most of my clients. The other thing is, you know, if you want to be milquetoast, if you don't want to have an edge, if you don't have an opinion, you're not coming from somewhere, then why are you doing what you're doing? You know, chances are my clients are out there because they're passionate about something, they believe in something, or they want to get their message out there. So you can't make everybody happy. You can't always be politically correct. You can't always, and frankly, in my contracts, I have a 30-day out. I can let you go in 30 days, you can let me go in 30 days. And I have, for that very reason, exercised my letting a couple clients go in the many years I've been doing this because of that very reason. They're afraid to ruffle any feathers.
So it just comes out mush.
It's mush. Well, what are we doing? And guess what? The media doesn't care. If you're going to come on a show and you're just going to be all nice, 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 and you ask me a tough question and I'm just nice, 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 guess what? You're not coming back.
Let's take a couple things that have happened in a few minutes we have left over the summertime. Let's talk politics first. This is like lightning round stuff, Ann.
Okay.
It's a challenge for you. It's
Okay.
lightning round.
All right.
I give you Mitt Romney. Our boy Mitt is campaigning during the summer, if you can call it that, right? And they are excoriating him. I mean, they are making him out to be the worst rich guy the world has ever seen, a total zero, blah, blah, blah. If you were handling him, would you have advised him to sit back and take that or fight back?
I say you fight back. And I say if it's, you go, look at the media outlets that are portraying you that way. Mainstream media is pretty liberal. They're going to portray things certain ways. You're not going to change that. So what other outlets do you have that you can get your guy or your gal out on that will maybe counter some of that? And I know you're talking politics. I want to talk about Linda McMahon. I want to talk about one of the big PR mistakes I feel she made. And you know, you can throw money at this stuff all day long. You know what she did? She used, for example, a voiceover that Brad Davis did endorsing her.
I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brad Davis, first time he's ever endorsed a candidate.
Right.
Love Brad, but they make all the other radio stations like TIC, big competitors, air her spot. Everybody at TIC is outraged. That's just the way it goes. Then she goes on and she has these commercials saying, "I'm voting for Obama, but I'm also voting for Linda."
Yeah, I remember.
Really? Which way do you really want it?
remember that.
You know what? And I was going to vote for her until I saw those ads. I'm like, you know what, honey? You can't have it both ways.
Let me ask you a question. Speaking of double standard, quickly. I give you Superstorm Sandy, right? And the poor people down there in New Jersey and New York and Staten Island, they're still going through it there, right? And FEMA's not performing.
Right.
Now I give you Katrina, all right, where FEMA didn't perform. We know what happened to George Bush. How come the president gets a pass in Superstorm Sandy?
You know, I don't know. And I think that's one of the things. Where's the media been? You know, it was breaking news. It was every other segment. Now where is it? You know, what about these poor people that are still suffering? And where is the accountability on these government agencies like FEMA? There isn't any. Everybody's afraid, again, to shake things up unless you get some good independent reporter. And the other thing is, in these reporters' defense, they don't have time. They're not going to give a reporter the time, the energy, and the resources to go do that story and do it right, in my opinion.
Let me give you another one. Last one example. I know how much you love the handling of the drip, drip, drip kind of circumstances. Two major events I can think of, one sports related, one international political. All right, sports related, Lance Armstrong, right? Over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, he said, I have not, I have not, I have not, I have not, and he had. Now he's totally ruined.
Yep.
You would have advised him to...
I tell people in certain situations you've got to admit you made a mistake, admit that you did something, and then hopefully, and chances are, things move on. You move on in the news cycle, you move on in life, you move on professionally. But to sit there and deny it in a lot of situations, that only hurts you worse in the end.
Isn't the same thing happening internationally now with this Benghazi incident where the 4 people were killed in? It's a drip, 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 right? And every day, something more comes out.
Right. And you can't sugarcoat this stuff. And frankly, you can't bull people when it comes to things. People can see right through that. And eventually, it is going to come out. So I tell folks, I've had to say to people, you know what? You can't always deny that these things happen. Sometimes you have to admit you made a mistake or somebody made a mistake and get it over with. People respect you more for that because people make mistakes, correct?
So, correct.
Correct.
Correct. We have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
Okay. You are a very, very successful entrepreneur, okay?
Thank you.
There's a lot of people that are out there and that see the very romanticized version of entrepreneurship. You know what? She's very successful, life is looking good, blah, blah, blah. What most of them don't understand is you're playing every day, you bet your company, and you're going 24/7.
Well, I'm going to share a little secret with you.
Okay?
Do you know who I sleep with?
Who do you sleep with?
My cell phone. Ha! I thought you were going to.
I thought we were going to have a big
No,
here
no,
for
no
a
big
second.
scandal. No. I do that because you're right. It's 24/7. People thought that being on the news was glorious. They thought it was glamorous. They thought it, and you know what? It was great.
Yeah.
It was great while it
It was.
lasted, and it was great. But it got to a point in my life where I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. I was up for a huge job as a spokesperson. I was a headhunter contacted me, and they said, you know what? I made it to pretty far along in the process. They said our biggest concern is we're not sure you could go work for somebody else again.
Exactly.
And I never really thought about that. And I'm like, thank you. You're right. I don't want to. Do I work hard? I work very, very hard. I love what I do, but I would never do anything differently. Is it easy? Can everybody do it? Absolutely not. You've got to have the right.
If you had to name the top 2 or 3 characteristics that someone has to have to be a successful entrepreneur, what would they be?
Well, it's passion. I didn't start with a lot of money, and so I was very frugal in that. But it's passion and it's effectiveness, and you've got to be good at what you do. And because my reputation, I've built my firm, I've built Baldwin Media on my reputation. It's word of mouth. I can't put an ad in a newspaper and expect people to call me. So over the course of time, that's worked for me. And again, I admire people that do it, but do it and do it right. Stay connected to the right people, and don't you jeopardize your own reputation. There have been some clients I've said no to because I can't.
That's right.
I
You
can't
can't
help
afford
them
that
defend. I can't help them defend what it is they want me to help them.
The other
defend.
thing is a successful entrepreneur has to have is know that they're going to succeed in some things. And
Have
they
the right attitude.
Have the right attitude. They have to be able to come back after a denial
Right.
or a failure.
Right.
You have to be
yeah,
able to
and
do
you
that.
always have to work at growing your business. You know, when I started my business, the phone didn't ring, but I had an office, I had a phone, people, I'd run in, how's business? Great, great, great. And eventually it did get great because people talk and they want to be part of somebody who's successful. They want to be around that. It's contagious. So whatever you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever your job is, give it 150%. Have that outward right attitude. And eventually, if you're not right now, you will be successful.
Okay, so we have about 45 seconds left. So if I were to pay you the highest compliment I could, having to do with you and your business, what would that compliment be?
That you helped me, that you helped me get through some rough times, that you were honest, that you were open, that you were strategic. When I have a CEO of a company who just can't get enough of what I'm advising and what I'm saying, and they're listening to me and they're respecting me for my advice, to me that's the most fulfilling. And when I get feedback like that, that's great.
Excellent. Listen, it's been great having you on the
Thank
show
you,
again.
Jim. Thanks to the crew.
Veronica's here, and I think Mom, Marge.
Mom's in the house.
Marge,
yes.
is that right?
Marge, yes, crazy Marge.
How do you think your daughter did tonight? Wonderful. Excellent.
Thank
If
you,
you're not going
Jim.
to get that from your mother, when are you going to get
That's
it from?
right. That's right. My biggest fan.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Take care of
Jim.
yourself.
Thanks.
And we'll be back with our next segment.